Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the KVI studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, the maniac who tried to swipe a toddler from Pike Place Market is held on bail. Shock, shock. And what do we know about the new Seahawks owners? But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
Senator Lindsey Graham passed away suddenly this weekend at the age of 71. This is really, really sad news for so many reasons. Personally, I have some regret that I never got to interview him. I reach out to congresspeople, senators all the time, and he was on my list, but schedules never really made it work, and I thought we'd have a lot to talk about. Him and I had a lot of politics in common. But a problem I'm having watching the interwebs is how people get labeled in death. When a terrible, horrible dictator like Soleimani gets taken out by the U.S. for being a terrorist, the austere religious scholar. What'd they say about Castro when he died? Leader of the people, whatever it was, gave him glowing things. And now it's neocon, warmonger with regards to Lindsey Graham. We have that on our own side, people throwing around those words. I will say, overall, the Democrats have actually been pretty good when it came to the death of Lindsey Graham. You're seeing him get kudos, high praise, kind words from Amy Klobuchar, from Kamala Harris, from across the board. You're seeing it from what we would consider the mainstream Democrats. I'm not talking about the Hassan Pikers and the Anna Kasparians who are beyond crazy, because we've got crazies on our own side. So I'm going to let the electeds speak for the Democrat Party in this case. But the reason they speak so highly about Lindsey Graham spoke to his principles, spoke to his values, and was willing to work with you on something if it was in that sphere. And he was willing to cross party lines, and he was nice to everybody, and he was sweet to everybody. And it seems like when he blew up like he did the Kavanaugh hearing, it was well-deserved. And the reason he may have even saved Brett Kavanaugh is because people were so shocked by his outburst when the witch trial, when the modern-day lynch mob was going after Justice Kavanaugh. Come back to that in a second. You forget sometimes that these are actual people. You forget sometimes that there's people with actual stories. And Lindsey Graham's kind of resonated with me a little bit. So he lost his parents when he was very young. And I still have my parents, but my parents went through a pretty awful divorce. And there was a time where me and my siblings were the closest family we had. And he talks a lot about, his sister talks a lot how he raised her, how she was adopted by him. And he didn't have any family. He wasn't married aside from his sister. I mean, he wasn't married to his sister. He didn't have any family aside from his sister. And there's this famous video where he goes to Disneyland with his nieces, and he takes his nieces to Disneyland, and people are yelling and screaming at him because he's a Republican. And he's just happy to be at Disneyland. He's just happy to be there with his nieces. Does that change your perception of the man when you know a little bit about their personal life? How about this for a second? You know, he was only, and I say this, only worth $1.5 million. That's it. And you say, he's a member of Congress and he's only worth $1.5 million. Has corruption become so mainstreamed that we expect them to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars? Clearly, he was not on Nancy Pelosi's investment list. $1.5 million is basically your houses. That's it. And he had a house in D.C. and he had a house where he grew up. That's about it. That's really it. That was his wealth. So people like to label him a neocon, a neoconservative. What exactly is a neocon? Basically, if you're going to define this, it combines conservative policies, domestic policies, with pro-American, sometimes interventionist foreign policy. I think that's the best way to sum it up, which is, if somebody's going to mess with American interests overseas, you go take care of business. If somebody's going to mess with our allies overseas, you go help out our allies. That's basically the rule. Does that make me a neocon because I believe in the exact same thing? Now, neocon has been kind of warped into meaning you want endless wars. You want to make money off the military-industrial complex. Was Lindsey Graham making money off the military-industrial complex? If so, he sucked at it. Do you know what he did for 30 years of his life? He was in the Air Force. He served this country in the U.S. Air Force, and then he went to the Senate. That's a guy who gave 50 years of his life to our country. 50 years of his life. So let's take this neocon label for a minute. He was very big on supporting Ukraine. I understand his logic on why, even though on the conservative side, support for Ukraine has kind of soured. Let's go back in time. Let's go back to the fall of the Soviet Union. Ukraine had a massive stockpile of nuclear weapons. We didn't want them having a massive stockpile of nuclear weapons. So, thanks to George Bush and Bill Clinton, George Bush Sr. and Bill Clinton, we then got into this mess where now we promised if you guys disarm, we will protect you. We will protect you against the Soviet Union. We didn't put them in NATO, which we probably should have done at the time, because then that would have been another barrier to Russia being a problem. But we figured Russia's no threat anymore. Soviet Union has collapsed. Peace is breaking out amongst the world. What threats could there really be? There's peace in our time. There's never going to be a problem down the road with something like terrorism, which they've been dealing with for years before that. But sure, peace in our time. Never mind the fact that people are still trying to rebuild the Soviet Union, or a guy like Putin might come back. So they said, we'll protect you. Well, now we're kind of stuck doing it. Now, there's ways to do it, and there's ways not to do it. There's the way Joe Biden was doing it, which was, how much money do you want? We'll just give it to you. Expect no results whatsoever. We'll just keep giving you the money, expecting nothing in return. That's not an ally. That's a moocher. That is somebody who's sucking the life out of you for their own purposes. Trump comes into office, reworks the Ukraine deal, and not only are we now getting something out of it, but it looks like Ukraine is actually starting to win. Before this, Ukraine was holding their own-ish, kind of. But now, it looks like they're actually making gains back against Russia. We still don't know what the end game is. We still don't know what the timetable is. But at least it's not just money out the door, money out the door, money out the door. Now it seems like this drone warfare may actually be working. Does that mean they're going to get back the Donbass region? Does it mean they're going to get back Crimea? Is that our problem for them to get any of that back? These are questions we can have. But we did make the deal to protect Ukraine, and we're kind of stuck with it. So, does that make me a neocon for admitting all that? I don't like the war in Ukraine. I don't like any of this. I don't like our money going out the door, but I recognize we're kind of stuck with it. And I also recognize that if you let Russia take Ukraine, then the rest of Europe is next. This is protecting our allies. Are there better ways to do it? Yeah. What's the off-ramp we've offered to Putin? Well, Trump has offered him multiple off-ramps, and he hasn't taken any of them because at this point, if Putin takes any of the off-ramps, guess what happens? He gets assassinated, and somebody overthrows him, and that's the end of Putin, and he knows that. This is all very complicated stuff. So for Lindsey Graham, calling him a neocon because he's supporting Ukraine, do you not remember what happened with Zelensky when he came to the White House? You remember when J.D. Vance and Trump blew up at Zelensky and said, you got to be thankful. You got to thank us, and we're going to make a deal, and then Zelensky basically got chucked out of on his butt out of the White House? Lindsey Graham had told Zelensky what to say, and Zelensky didn't do it. And Lindsey Graham is a big supporter of President Trump. And he said, I told Zelensky what to say. He blew it. I'm on Team Trump. That's a man who goes, I gave you every opportunity. I coached you on what to say, and you screwed up. And Lindsey Graham is one of the people who salvaged the deal after that massive flare-up. And now it looks like Ukraine is having some gains against Russia. Does that make him a neocon? If Europe falls to Russia, that is bad. If the Soviet Union is reestablished, that is bad. And for all you isolationists who think it's not going to affect us in the U.S., you want to tell that to everybody who lived through the Cold War? It most certainly did. So, does that make him a neocon? That's why I really hate labels that you give people. My father always used to say, labels are for clothing, not for Jews, because, people say it's this kind of Jew, observant, not observant, whatever it is. Here, labels are for clothing, not for people. Because what? Does this make me a neocon? Because I just supported what Lindsey Graham did with Ukraine, even though I've got all my hangups with Ukraine? Does that make me a neocon? Neoconservatives believe in strong U.S. military high defense spending. Anybody who cheers the Blue Angels, guess what? You believe in that too. Because they're a flight squadron meant for recruiting, and they don't actually go and fight anybody. If you cheer the Blue Angels, guess what? You believe in a strong U.S. military and high defense spending. American global leadership, believing the U.S. should actively shape world affairs rather than retreat for them? Yeah, we are the world leader. We say the president is a leader of the free world. That's what we are. Military intervention when necessary to protect U.S. interests, allies, or promote democracy abroad. You want to have a discussion about whether we should have gone to Vietnam? Happy to have that conversation, because I would probably say that's a no. Support for our allies like Israel. Lindsey Graham, big on taking down Iran, because Lindsey Graham knew it was a threat to the entire Middle East. He knew it's not just a threat to the Middle East, but it's a threat to the United States. And when you have all these threats, being America first means peace through strength, free market economics, traditional family values. Is that anything anybody on this show does not believe in? Anybody who listens to the show, is that anything you don't believe in? You believe in all of that, even if you are one of our lefty friends that listens to the show, who listens to the show to actually learn something as opposed to just yell at me on social media later, right? You believe in everything on that list. Does that make you a neoconservative? Some people talk about Lindsey Graham, and they really, really don't like him, even on our side. They really tear into this guy. I really enjoyed his sense of humor. Do you remember this clip back in 2010? When Elena Kagan was being nominated for the Supreme Court, he asked her this question.
Where are you at on Christmas Day?
Senator Graham, that is an undecided legal issue, which, I suppose I should ask exactly what you mean by that. I'm assuming that the question you mean is whether a person who was apprehended in the United States is...
No, I just asked you where you're at on Christmas.
Like all Jews, I was probably at a Chinese restaurant.
Great answer. Great answer.
I could almost see that one coming. I thought,
Me too. So you were celebrating Hanukkah.
Senator Schumer explained this to me earlier.
Yeah, he did.
If I might, no other restaurants are open.
Right. You were with your family on Christmas Day at a Chinese restaurant. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's great. That's what Hanukkah and Christmas is all about.
That's Lindsey Graham. Do you remember when all the activists were occupying Capitol Hill and occupying the Capitol and storming the Capitol about Brett Kavanaugh's nomination? Very different than that one. Elena Kagan, Republicans may not have wanted her, but there wasn't this lynch mob after her. Remember what they tried to do to get rid of Brett Kavanaugh? Accused him of being a rapist, you name it. Me too. All that insanity they were doing up on Capitol Hill. Reporters started picking up the activist claims. Cornered Lindsey Graham in the hall during the hearings. He had this very clever response.
Take a listen.
You've humiliated this guy enough, and there seems to be no bottom for some of you.
If he would say a polygraph, it would all be over, Senator
So
Graham.
why don't we dunk him in water and see if he floats?
He's a witch. Dunk him in water and see if he floats. I like the sense of humor. But for those of you who like the Supreme Court the way it is now, President Trump's Supreme Court, or a balanced court as we haven't had in a long time, or a constitutional court as we haven't had in a long time, you get to thank Lindsey Graham for that. Lindsey Graham was known as being everybody's best friend, even on the Democrat side of the aisle. Everybody loved him. You're seeing Democrats, Republicans, everybody talking about how much they loved him. So when he blew up, a guy with that kind of sense of humor, when he blew up, people listened. And he's the one who made sure that Brett Kavanaugh got to become a U.S. Supreme Court justice.
If you wanted an FBI investigation, you could have come to us. What you want to do is destroy this guy's life, hold this seat open, and hope you win in 2020. You said that, not me. You've got nothing to apologize for. When you see Sotomayor and Kagan, tell them that Lindsey said hello, because I voted for them. I would never do to them what you've done to this guy. This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics. And if you really wanted to know the truth, you sure as hell wouldn't have done what you've done to this guy. Are you a gang rapist?
No.
I cannot imagine what you and your family have gone through. Boy, y'all want power. God, I hope you never get it. I hope the American people can see through this sham, that you knew about it and you held it. You had no intention of protecting Dr. Ford. None. She's as much of a victim as you are. God, I hate to say it because these have been my friends. But let me tell you, when it comes to this, you're looking for a fair process. You came to the wrong town at the wrong time, my friend. Do you consider this a job interview?
The advice and consent role is like a job interview.
Consider that you've been through a job interview?
I've been through a process of advice and consent under the Constitution.
Would you say you've been through hell?
I've been through hell and then some.
This is not a job interview.
Yeah.
This is hell.
This
is going to destroy the ability of good people to come forward because of this crap. Your high school yearbook. You have interacted with professional women all your life, not one accusation. You're supposed to be Bill Cosby when you're a junior and senior in high school. And all of a sudden you got over it. It's been my understanding that if you drug women and rape them for 2 years in high school, you probably don't stop. Here's my understanding. If you lived a good life, people would recognize it, like the American Bar Association has the gold standard. His integrity is absolutely unquestioned. He is the very circumspect in his personal conduct, harbors no biases or prejudices. He's entirely ethical, is a really decent person. He is warm, friendly, unassuming. He's the nicest person. The ABA. The one thing I can tell you, you should be proud of. Ashley, you should be proud of this. That you raised a daughter who had the good character to pray for Dr. Ford. To my Republican colleagues, if you vote no, you're legitimizing the most despicable thing I have seen in my time in politics. You want this seat? I hope you never get it. I hope you're on the Supreme Court. That's exactly where you should be. And I hope that the American people will see through this charade. And I wish you well, and I intend to vote for you, and I hope everybody who's fair-minded will.
So because the guy who was known as the friendly guy, the guy who was known as the joker, the guy who was known to work across the aisle blew up like that, I'm not going to say lost it. He was 100% correct. We got Brett Kavanaugh. And apparently in his last conversation, one of the last conversations before he died, he spoke to President Trump, and he was working on the Save America Act. So what happens now? Well, just a couple of hours ago, the South Carolina governor announced who's going to be replacing Senator Lindsey Graham. What's going to happen is there's going to be a temporary replacement until the election in November. So this is somebody who serves out his term through the next Senate, next Congress being sworn in. Here's the announcement.
Today, under the law, it's my duty and honor to name someone to serve in the place of this irresistible man, this irreplaceable man, this extraordinary man for the remainder of his term. Lindsey took care of his little sister in years long departed. It's my honor to ask his little sister, Darlene Graham, to finish his work for him now.
That's beautiful, by the way. And those of you concerned, how's she going to vote? How's she going to vote? She sees it as being a steward for him of his seat till the end of his term.
Great idea. And I'm sure that everyone here does as well. Darlene, little sister, come forward, please.
Thank you, Governor, and just bear with me as I try to get through this. But first, I just want to say one thing I've never heard Lindsey described as is irresistible. So, okay, we'll just start with that. But first, I would like to thank everyone who has called and reached out over the past couple of days. I can't tell you how much it's meant to me and our family. I know Lindsey was loved and respected by many, and I greatly appreciate the memories and even the funny stories that have been shared. These shared experiences, along with our faith, have gotten us through these past 2 very difficult days. Next, I want to thank the governor for selecting me to serve the remainder of Lindsey's term. It is such an honor. Lindsey has always been there for me, and now I will be there for him. My brother was the most amazing person, outstanding leader, and just a genuinely good man. He was kind and considerate and loved by his family dearly.
This is a woman who just lost her brother less than 48 hours ago, and she's stepping in to fill his seat. That's a family that was imbued with service to America. She didn't have to do that. She could have just said, you know, my brother just died. Can I have a little bit of time? She's stepping up to serve her country and carry on her brother's legacy. That's really, really incredible. I don't know if I'd be able to do that. If God forbid something like that happened to my family, hey, could you step up and fill in for a little bit? I'll be like, hey, can I have like the 7 days for Shiva first? Can we do that before we start talking about politics? But she's stepping up and serving her country just like her brother always did. One of my regrets will always be that I never got to interview Lindsey Graham. And I wish I really, really had, because from everything I've seen in the last 24 hours, and I had 3 hours in the car yesterday where I was driving, and I had listened to all my podcasts and everything. I just listened to Fox News for like basically 3 hours, is basically the Lindsey Graham eulogy for 3 hours. Sounded like an amazing guy, and I really, really wish I had gotten the chance to meet him. We go to the KVI studio line, take a call from Scott in Issaquah. Scott, what's going on, man?
Hey, Ari. Well, I'm sitting here listening to this, and yeah, God bless Lindsey. I mean, I don't agree with a lot of stuff he was about, but he did some good things, and I think he was a decent person. But I want to remind you that he was not actually a very strong Trump supporter early on. He was pretty hardcore against him and was like a lot of left talking points. A lot of the crazy stuff we were hearing on the left against Trump, he was backing it and attacked Trump really harshly. And so I just remember that kind of stuff going on. And
just don't forget this, Scott. No, Scott, I'm with you, but don't forget, so is J.D. Vance. Don't forget, so is Ted Cruz.
Yeah?
And so is Marco Rubio. And me personally, I didn't vote for him the first time. I didn't attack him or anything. I didn't vote for him the first time, and I was kind of hot on having DeSantis the second time around. But you know what? President Trump's my guy, and I really like a lot of the stuff he does. People can change, right, man?
Oh, yeah. No, I agree. I just saying, I don't know. I'm not totally excited about like some of the Supreme Court justices. I don't think they're really that conservative. I mean, I think Clarence Thomas is probably the best justice on there.
Sure, Amy Coney Barrett, that didn't work out so well. But Brett Kavanaugh did. Yeah. No, Scott, I hear where you're coming from. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show? Give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Up next, looks like the Seahawks are going to be sold. What do we know about the new owner? And what do we know about the psychopath who tried to swap a baby from Pike Place Market? Tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show. Matt says over on the text line regarding the last segment we did about Lindsey Graham, oh, man, here come the waterworks. That was the point. That was the goal. We sometimes forget that these are people that we're beating up all the time, and some of them are lizard people. I mean, we don't like the lizard people so much. But the real people, we mourn them when they go. We really, really do. This one here from Becky. You think about all those people who didn't like Trump at first, and now they're all in his cabinet and very, very loyal. That must tell you something. They're not all stupid. I think Trump is a very good man, and they know it, and he loves his country. Look, you can change your mind on people. You can. It does happen. Absolutely. Carol wants to know if I went to McStabby's today. Okay, Carol, here's what happened. I was having a bit of a day, and I figured I wasn't going to get there, so I drove by McStabby's, and Kevin and I are going to lunch there tomorrow, so we'll have a full report. But when I drove by McStabby's, I couldn't take out my phone and video it because, well, shouldn't do that while you're driving. That's extremely illegal, and I was juggling too many other things in my hands at the time and didn't have another one for the phone. Suffice it to say, when I drove by, it looks like it has returned to the status quo. And I couldn't tell what was going on in the restaurant itself, Carol. But what I could see was outside of McStabby's. And let's just say I saw enough people doing the Fetty Fold that I wouldn't be surprised if they have closed the restaurant for indoor dining already. It's like COVID. No indoor dining, right? So I don't know for sure, Carol, but Kevin and I are going to find out tomorrow. I know we've pushed this for 4 days now. We are going tomorrow.
Do you think the employees in there were when the users came in when it was all fully open for the World Cup, were like, oh, sorry, sir. No. Users will be available to use outside in a couple of weeks when we close down the dining room again. Sorry, sir.
Then you can come back.
You can come back then.
Do you think they had to bring in more staffers? Because I assume that the traffic to McStabby's has kind of fallen off since it got labeled that way and said, hey, we're actually going to have people here. Might want to bring over some people from the Como News one, the new nice one that they opened. Let's bring over a few new people. So, Carol, we will get there. And I appreciate you holding us accountable. I don't find it annoying. I find it very entertaining, as a matter of fact. Speaking of entertaining, who's going to be owning the Seahawks? Well, the Paul Allen estate has apparently tentatively agreed to sell this thing to the Koslaw family, which is Vinod Koslaw, who is a part owner of the San Francisco 49ers, who he's going to have to sell his share in the 49ers to buy these guys. Do I really think the Seahawks are going to move? I find it very unlikely because they're the only team for multiple states. You don't have a team in Oregon. You don't have a team in Idaho. You don't have a team. Just go across. You don't have 8 teams around here. So the Seahawks have a big market penetration and a big market share. I don't really think they're going to go anywhere. However, it is now a challenge that they're going to have to pay a lot of taxes and that the players are going to have to pay a lot of taxes. And that is a huge recruiting problem. Also, something else, according to some initial reports, one of the reasons the Allen family want to sell it to this family is because they have shared values. Does that mean shared woke values? Does that mean shared values of football? Does that mean shared values of what? Nonprofit support? What exactly does that mean? Okay, now that we figured out where the Seahawks are going, can somebody tell me where the Giant Sci-Fi collection is? Those of you who say, oh, the Mopop has it. I know a lot of that stuff ain't in the Mopop anymore. Where's the models of the Enterprise? Where's Darth Vader's lightsaber? Where is all that stuff? I haven't seen any resolution on that. These are the important things. Who has the bridge of the Enterprise? Who has the models of the Enterprise? These are things we need to know.
You had Kenobi's robe there at the Cinerama.
Yeah.
You had a full costume of Twiki from Buck Rogers there. What happened to all that?
What happened to all that? That's what you had, the full con station from the original Enterprise. You had the D. You had all this stuff. Where's all that? I haven't seen anything on that. Somebody tell me the disposition of that, because it was in the museum so we could all see it, and now it's all gone. Priorities, people. Priorities. I want to know about these things. Plus, I'm sure a lot of you want to know about what's going on in Iran. Are your gas prices about to go up? What's going on with the Strait of Hormuz? When we come back, my friends, President Trump making a big announcement tonight. We'll have a preview of what it's all about. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Those of you that follow my social media accounts, and if you don't, you can check it out, Ari Hoffman Official on Facebook and Instagram, The Hofffather over on X. I posted some pictures and video of Ben Gurion Airport in Israel. Ben Gurion Airport is their main commercial airport, which means that's their passenger airport. That is not a military base. It's where if you go on a trip to Israel, that's where you're going to land, Ben Gurion Airport. Well, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law just flew in. They're going there for a week or two. And as they're landing in the airport, in the family chat, I get a message. Somebody send this to Ari. Ari, you got to see this. What is it? Row after row after row after row of U.S. tankers on the ground. Why do you need U.S. tankers? Because they are refueling U.S. bombers, U.S. fighter planes. And tankers are big. Tankers are the size of passenger jets. They can't just land anywhere. So you need a big, big runway for these guys. So let's go to the commercial airport. So it's row after row after row. Now, why is this interesting? Because we've seen this before. Israel had actually asked the U.S. to move a bunch of these planes before the summer. And you're going to laugh at the reason why. Why do they ask them to move a bunch of the planes before the summer? Because that's when all the kids on their Israel trip, like my daughter, go out to Israel. And they need space for all the tourists coming through and their parents or whoever else is visiting them. So they had to bring them all back because Iran broke the memorandum of understanding, as we knew that they would, by attacking shipping in the Hormuz Strait. They continued doing it. They continued launching missiles at locations in Qatar, Bahrain. They attacked ships from the Saudis. They attacked ships from the UK. So they're not adhering to the agreement at all. And Trump said enough. Enough is enough. But why this time does it seem like enough is enough? I think there's something we all forgot. They've been trying to kill Trump this whole time. You want to tick off somebody like that? Are you stupid? Are you dumb? Are you deranged? Are you suicidal? All of the above. So we know that they've been trying to assassinate Trump. In fact, there's people in federal prison who were part of the Iranian conspiracies to assassinate President Trump. And we found out over the weekend, remember that whole thing with Air Force One? Why is he taking the old Air Force One? Why isn't he taking the new Air Force One? Well, here's the problem with Air Force One. There are always two of them usually. Well, I should say, there are usually two of them, and they're identical. So you don't know which one he's taking, but now one looks really different than the other two. So they're going to notice when he's taking a different one. I think they were trying to play three-card Monty with the president, and I think Trump opened his mouth and was trying to explain why he wasn't on his new fancy plane and had to take the old Air Force One and kind of gave away the secret. But we found out over the weekend that Iran was reportedly planning to assassinate President Trump during the NATO summit in Turkey. Israel had warned the Americans in recent days about Iranian plans to target Trump, including direct warnings raised by Ambassador Huckabee. Western intelligence picked up Iranian preparations for the assassination on Turkish soil, and that warning led to the decision to switch the presidential aircraft before Trump left Turkey. Iranian officials saw Trump's arrival in Turkey as a rare opportunity to kill him, but the warning reached the Americans in time. This also explains why Trump ordered the strikes in Iran that same night. Now, President Trump has a big press conference scheduled for 6 p.m. our time. President Trump is very considerate. He always does his press conferences when I'm off the air. He always does it right when the Ari Hoffman show ends. Then there's a Trump press conference. I love my good friend, President Trump. Very, very considerate of that. If you want a preview of what he's going to say tonight, here's what he told Hugh Hewitt earlier today.
Can you or the American military or the Israeli military get to what's left of their third string and their fourth string and their fifth string? Do you know where they are? Can you kill them?
Yeah, I do, but we don't want to talk about that. But
okay.
We certainly are watching. Yep, I know a lot about that subject. I know a lot, but I don't think it's appropriate to talk about it right now. But we will be hitting them. Like as an example, we're going to hit them very hard tonight, and we're going to hit them hard tomorrow. And there's not a damn thing they can do about it.
I don't know about you. Kevin, I'm thinking about staying in the studio a little bit longer so I can watch it on the TVs before I get out of here because we're going to blow them off the face of the earth. They tried to kill me. They tried to kill Marco. They tried to kill my daughter. They tried to kill everybody. They tried to kill all the Americans and my friend Bibi Netanyahu. Nobody touches Bibi. That's real. My fellow Americans, they tried to kill me. That's what's going to be tonight. And he's right. What Hugh Hewitt was asking, third string, fourth string, it's how many layers of their government you have to take out before you get to the actual reasonable ones. And the problem is you have the IRGC, which runs the government, which is the terrorist organization, and the more moderate government, which chants death to America. The truth is there isn't really anybody good to negotiate with right now. You need to go back to what President Trump originally said, unconditional surrender. And then when we have all these targets, you got to make sure nobody's resupplying them, like on Friday when they were bombing the train tracks that are coming from China and Russia and other places. You got to wonder why they didn't do that originally. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. Speaking of jihadis, by the way, Zoran Mamdani decided to release a new map of New York City. Couldn't help but notice certain ethnic groups he took off it. Tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I think anybody who's listened to the show for an extended period of time knows I am very familiar with New York because I was born and raised in New York. I went to school in Manhattan for high school and for college. Plus, that's where you hung out when you lived in the suburbs, and there's nothing in the suburbs. You went to the city. I know New York City pretty well. Zorn Mamdani's crew released a map of New York City showing all the little neighborhoods. Reminds me a lot of the little map that Seattle released for the World Cup. It doesn't have streets, but they're trying to show New York City immigrant enclaves. Now, what's funny about this is growing up, there's certain neighborhoods, you want to go buy Chinese throwing stars or fake purses or fake Rolexes or Croakley's sunglasses. You go to Chinatown. That's where you go, and they have the best deals. That's where you go. Well, Chinatown's on the map. That's great. And then if you're talking about the place above Harlem where you're wondering if it's safe to go up there, well, that's where I went to college, my friends. And here on the map, it's called Little Dominican Republic. Now, we didn't call it that. You know what we called it? Washington Heights. You've seen the musical In the Heights, right? So you've heard of the musical? No? Okay, fine. It sucked. Don't worry about that. Lin-Manuel, whatever his name is. Hamilton, I get people like it. In the Heights, not that great. But then I notice a few other things here. Little Palestine? Okay. Kevin, I know enough to know that if there was a Little Palestine, I would have avoided it like the plague. We would not have gone over there. Don't go there. Right? We would have known that. But you know what's missing from here? Where do you go if you want the best pizza or the best pasta or the best spaghetti or the best any of that? Guess where? Little Italy. Hey, I noticed that's missing from the map. In fact, I notice a lot of neighborhoods like that are missing from the map. So it's not just erasing Jews. Oh, yeah, Jews ain't on this map either. No, the Jewish enclaves are here. Well, that's a given. It's Mamdani. We didn't expect anything. But now Italians are all mad. So the Free Press went around Little Italy, which isn't on the map, interviewing Italian Americans. And it looks like the cast of Goodfellas. That's what they look like, okay? Look, we all look a certain way too, okay? So they go around interviewing them, and they ain't happy about this.
Mayor Mamdani, I give you a year. You are not a New Yorker. You have no clue.
I'm Isabella Reggi, and today we are here in Little Italy asking the locals how they feel about one of the oldest immigrant communities, Little Italy, not being included on Mayor Mamdani's immigrant enclave map.
I don't consider you to be my mayor.
I think it's disgraceful for what he's doing. He's got to be fair to everybody, and he's not fair to everybody. He's not fair to the Jewish people, which he makes everybody notice he's not fair to the Jewish people. He's not fair to the Irish people. And now he hates the Italians. For what reason? What do we do to him that he should hate us?
They always sort of pushed us to the side. I got it. Yeah. In other words, Little Italy, they take care of their own problems. And we're always pushed aside. And I think it's about time that we have to be firm about this. Otherwise, we'll totally be forgotten.
If you understand what took place here over 100 years ago, between 1880 and 1920, when the mass migration of Italian immigrants first came, this was the stepping stone for the Italians.
Well, the Bari family came here 120 years ago from Sicily. They were immigrants. They landed down in what's known as the 5 Points. Grandma started the San Gennaro Festival. That right up there, that is Grandma. That is Grandma. Grandma from the Bari family. Okay, she is the heart and soul of this neighborhood.
My grandfather was on the Society of St. Gennaro, which happens to be this year 100 years. So it means a lot to me, Little Italy, you know?
There's no such thing as left or right down here. Both sides of the street are beautiful.
And what makes New York City such a special place is a collage of many different cultures. People from all over the world come here and settle. And they need to be recognized for the contributions that they brought to this wonderful country.
Don't piss off the Italians. You don't do that. Shows how little Mamdani knows about New York. If there's one group not to piss off in New York, it's the Italians. By the way, why don't you just focus on that 12-block-long homeless encampment near the Intrepid before you start redoing maps? Lots more to discuss as the show continues, including your chance to take the trip or keep the cash, and exclusive story about Ferguson. Tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the KVI studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Ro Khanna seems to be friends with Jussie Smollett because he made up this crazy story about what happened when he went overseas. But before we get to any of that, my friends, it is your chance to take the trip or keep the cash. That's right, my friends. This week, we are giving away your chance to win a choice of going on a Mississippi River cruise or $3,000 in cold, hard cash. All you have to do is text the word I give you to the number I give you. Not your name, not your address, not your phone number. Not Ari Hoffman, you are so good looking with your new tan that's turning red because you're spending too much time in the sun. Text the word only to the number I give you for your chance to win. Today's word is Delta, as in the River Delta, as in the Federation Delta in Star Trek, as in Delta Airlines you could fly, I guess, in theory, if you go take the trip. I don't know who we're flying you on, but you'll go. Text the word Delta, DELTA, to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757 for your chance to win. Now, I have a story for you you're not going to get anywhere else.
Talk Radio 570 KVI, an Ari Hoffman Show exclusive.
When we get a story we really care about here on KVI, we do not let it go. We will keep after it. We will keep finding out everything about it. And I really want to know about businesses leaving Washington. I want to know why they left Washington. And I want to know if there was any warnings that they were going to leave Washington. So remember when we took the U-Haul truck out to Starbucks to help them move? Remember when we went out there and broadcast the show from outside the Starbucks corporate headquarters after we found out that they were moving out? I thought to myself, this isn't something that just happens at the drop of a hat. This is something where Starbucks has people they pay to engage with government. Starbucks has public relations people. Starbucks supports all these lefty causes. You think they just picked up and left without telling anybody? Nah, they didn't. So I filed a public disclosure request for all the communications between the governor's office and Starbucks. Now, most of them are Zoom meeting invites. Okay. So I have now filed another one for the copies of those Zoom meetings because those are going to be a lot of fun. But there was something fun in here. As I'm scrolling through thousands of pages of Zoom invites and not a lot of text, Starbucks logo jumped out at me. Starbucks logo? What's this doing here? Turns out it was on letterhead. To the Honorable Bob Ferguson, Governor of Washington. Dear Governor Ferguson, Starbucks Coffee Company has been proudly headquartered in Washington since our founding in 1971. We currently employ more than 13,000 partners, our employees, in our headquarters, manufacturing facility, and more than 400 coffee houses across the state. We are concerned, by the way, for Starbucks is bordering on panic, about legislative measures which would increase taxes on retail businesses in the state by billions of dollars. Specifically, Senate Bill 5814, sales tax on services, and House Bill 2081's business and occupation surcharge. Do you know when this letter was written? The date, May 16th, 2025. Wait a minute. Hang on. This is before the income tax or anything else. Oh, you mean this is when Bob Ferguson was about to sign the largest tax increase in state history after the legislative cycle, specifically targeting not just us, but businesses as well? Oh, you mean Starbucks was worried about this and contacted the governor and actually asked him to veto these bills? Starbucks asked him to veto these bills. By the way, I know a lot of people have issues with money and politics, and I know a lot of people have issues with Starbucks. I get it. But if one of the largest employers in your state says, Bob, this is a problem for us, You listen because you don't want to lose those jobs. These taxes will have adverse effects on our businesses. We are currently making investments in our partners, coffee houses, and overall businesses in our efforts to make the store experience better for our partners and in turn for our customers. These are meaningful investments, and we believe they are the right thing to do for Starbucks and the communities we serve. These changes are happening amidst a dynamic macroeconomic environment and a volatile global coffee market. What does that translate to? Are you ready for this? Those tariffs are going to affect our coffee, and we're going to have to spend a lot of money on them beans. That's number one. But number two is dynamic macroeconomic environment. That means we're uncertain of the way things are going around the country because we're, coming off of Biden. We're going into Trump. It's a new administration. We don't know which way it's going to go. But also, we've got some issues here in Seattle, and you're doing a whole bunch of taxes, and it's really a lot of uncertainty how this is all going to affect us. The additional burden imposed by these taxes could hinder our ability to invest in growth and innovation. Translation: if you tax us, we cannot hire more people here. We cannot expand more stores here. That's the translation of that. We are particularly concerned about SB 5814's rushed legislative process and lack of stakeholder engagement, which has led to a lack of clarity over the bill's intent and likely unintended long-term economic consequences that will disproportionately impact Washington-based businesses. Oh, you mean all these taxes for sales tax are going to hit you, and then people go, wait, my $5 coffee is now costing $6 or $7 or whatever it is? Maybe I don't need to do that. Maybe I'll get a Keurig machine at home. Maybe I'll get an Insta coffee at home as opposed to your expensive coffee. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll just get Folgers. Oh, Seattle people don't do Folgers. But maybe we'll just do that. For Starbucks, imposing new taxes on certain elements of our staffing, IT, security, and advertising functions that are based out of our local headquarters would dramatically increase costs, putting us at a competitive disadvantage to companies based in other states. Stop. You remember this tax? This tax was one of the ones that was going to hit all these IT companies because they figured, we're going to go after the tech sector and we're going to take all their money. Money. So they figure we're going to take all their money, right? But you didn't realize that when you do that kind of stuff, it's going to affect anybody who needs to pay for IT. It's going to make their costs go up. So all of a sudden, you've got schools going, whoa. They're raising the prices on all our tech stuff because of this. What did you idiots do? Okay. Additionally, HB 2081 imposes a new B&O surcharge that will also make it more difficult for us to make vital investments in Washington. Translation: we cannot expand here if you do this. Like others, we believe there are significant practical and legal concerns with SB 5814's focus on taxing digital advertising services while exempting traditional media formats, raising issues of discriminatory taxation under the Federal Internet Tax Freedom Act. These practical and legal issues could lead to prolonged litigation and uncertainty for businesses and state revenues. Translation: if you tax all these companies, they are going to leave town, and then you won't have their money anymore. No more money. No more of that. You won't have any more of that. We understand the difficult choice you face and are committed to collaborating with you on balanced solutions that will also help grow and create jobs in our state. Translation: we like your liberal policies. We like your liberal stupidity. And we will work with your liberal stupidity because we agree with your liberal stupidity. But can you not tax the wazoo out of us? That's what they say. We urge you to consider the long-term impact these taxes will have on our businesses and 13,000 statewide partners, retailers more broadly, and the overall economic competitiveness of Washington State. Veto action would be the first step in addressing this issue and working together to support the continued growth and success of businesses in our state. Sincerely, Dominic Carr, Chief Communications and Corporate Affairs Officer of the Starbucks Coffee Company. They warned Bob Ferguson what was about to happen. They warned him. And yet he did it anyway. This is at the point where it's not on the legislature. The legislature voted for this. He could have vetoed it. Could have done it. They went to him directly. Could have vetoed it, but he was too afraid of the woke mob, or worse yet, he agreed with the woke legislatures. And what happened? He signed it. And businesses began moving out. Tech businesses began moving out. Now, this is even before the income tax. Do you remember what I said when we heard about Starbucks moving? I said this didn't happen because of the income tax. This didn't happen overnight. It probably was started last year when they discussed the largest tax increase in state history, because you don't move a company headquarters as big as Starbucks overnight. Turns out, yeah, exactly a year. They've been talking about this that we know of. They may have been talking about this longer than that, but they've been talking to Bob Ferguson about this for a year. Starbucks announced earlier this year the new investment in Nashville, including a $100 million corporate expansion expected to bring 2,000 jobs over 5 years to Tennessee. Interesting. 2,000 corporate jobs. Yet they're laying off everybody here. Hiring in Nashville, laying everybody off here. Why do you think that is? Because it is cheaper to move and have a one-time $100 million expense than every year be paying these taxes that is going to far exceed $100 million. That's why. Starbucks is already closing stores here in Washington. They're tired of all these green-haired lunatics, the venti-fada-nicks, that decide to protest anytime they don't like anything. So they already closed, 5 stores just because of that? And as we've discussed before on the show previously, there is not a single Starbucks in walking distance to us right now. We have to get in a car and drive. I know, first world problems. But that shows you how they've eliminated their footprint in our area. Why do you think downtown Seattle, Lower Queen Anne, they're getting rid of Starbucks locations? Well, maybe the tents on the corner might have something to do with it. By the way, I've been documenting Seattle returning, or nature returning to Seattle. And by nature, I mean drug addicts. If you follow me on social media, you'll see those pictures popping up of the stuff I see, not when I'm driving, when I'm a passenger in a vehicle. Definitely not when I'm driving at all, but definitely a passenger as I'm myself escorting myself to work. Yes, definitely. But you're seeing this stuff return. So you have the crime on top of everything else. And Howard Schultz, 4 years ago, we broke the story of what happened in Starbucks corporate headquarters, where he said he was worried about all the crime in these blue cities. We broke that news too. So Howard Schultz probably moved because of the income tax. But Starbucks, which he is not the CEO of anymore, was going to be leaving as of last year. And I know a lot of you are saying, screw Starbucks. Their coffee sucks anyway, and they're a bunch of lefties, and they destroyed Seattle. You're not wrong. You're not wrong about any of that. Did they have a hand in this? Absolutely. But when those jobs leave, they stick us with the bill. The Democrats will do that. And Starbucks warned the government this was going to happen. In fact, they were fighting for you to stop some of these taxes. They were really doing it for themselves. But they were doing it for companies like them because they didn't want to be hit with any of these taxes. So now, you've got a Seattle cornerstone company like Starbucks saying we are out of here. And it was all entirely avoidable. Entirely avoidable. This could have been avoided if Bob Ferguson had listened, but either he was too afraid of his base or he is too bought into this insanity to listen to them. Bob Ferguson lost Starbucks. Bob Ferguson cost Washington Starbucks. He could have stopped it. Whoever ends up running against Bob Ferguson, who knows? It could be anybody. It could even be a radio host. You never know who it could be. One day, you never know. I mean, that mansion looks kind of dated. I think it needs an upgrade and a bigger TV and nicer carpets. But anywho, whoever ends up running against Bob Ferguson, you cost us Starbucks. This letter proves it. By the way, it's going to be fun to watch all the mainstream media trying to file for the same public disclosure request I got. Now that I got this, don't want to admit they got it from Hoffman. They're going to go try and get it on their own. Fine. Just get the word out so people know who did this. You want to know where this ends? I'll tell you where this ends. We've already seen wealth flight out of Washington, even though Bob Ferguson and Jamie Peterson deny it. If only there was another city, another state that did something dumb like this, that maybe we could look at them and see how it works out. Let's go on over to the New York Post. New York State share of U.S. millionaires dramatically declined in recent years, causing a nearly $11 billion loss in much-needed tax revenue in just 1 year. What happened in the last year in New York? Anybody know? This guy started running for office, and they were worried this guy was going to win for office, and then he did win the Gracie Mansion, and now he's mayor of New York, and his whole thing was tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the rich. Oh, you mean when you threaten to tax the rich people go, screw that, and they get out of there? And now you lost the revenue you needed to run your city? The study released Monday by Citizen Budget Commission comes amid fears that socialist mayor Zoran Mamdani's push to tax the rich will drive even more wealthy taxpayers and their businesses out of New York City. So Kathy Hochul demonizes the rich and then begs them to come back. Zoran Mamdani demonizes the rich and goes, don't let the door hit you on the way out. And guess what? Now they left. Hey, I wonder if he's going to be able to pay for his grocery stores now, his free grocery stores. He already can't pay for the busing. Even before Mamdani took office, the Empire State share of nation's millionaires dipped from 12.7% to 8.7% between 2010 and 2022, the largest decline of any state. Who was the mayor of New York during that time? Does anybody remember? Who was the governor of New York? Oh, you mean when you have de Blasio in charge of the city, another socialist lunatic, that you're going to have these problems? Yep. The analysis states New York's declining share of high-income taxpayers has meaningful consequences. Had New York maintained its share of the nation's millionaires over the past decade, personal income tax collections would have been substantially higher, roughly $10.7 billion more in taxes in the year 2022. Many experts and business leaders warn Mamdani's stick-it-to-the-rich policy dreams and their growing success among Albany lawmakers could supercharge the drip of wealthy people leaving the state. I love the way the New York Post writes this stuff. Governor Kathy Hochul has firmly opposed an outright hike on the wealthy this year as she seeks re-election in November. But as soon as she gets reelected, all right, Mamdani, let's go. Let's tax everybody. But she did bax the pied-à-terre tax on luxury second homes in New York City, so we know what direction she's headed in. Mamdani gleefully gloated about the tax in a social media video, which we discussed on the show, filmed outside billionaire Ken Griffin's $238 million Manhattan penthouse, a stunt that infuriated the hedge fund titan and prompted him to threaten pulling a $6 billion Park Avenue development. Now, you see that he's not the only one. People are leaving because wealth is often portable, and rich people can afford to move it and save money somewhere else. You know what else could leave New York one day? Wall Street. Not the actual street itself, but all the firms on Wall Street, because why would they stay? Can you imagine doing that tour one day? See this bull? Why is there a bull statue in the middle of the street of these abandoned buildings and all these homeless people? Is it because of BS? Is that why the giant bull statue is there? No, son. This used to be the home of New York Stock Exchange. This used to be the lifeblood pulse of the stock market and the economy. Now it's in Miami. But you remember when it used to be here in New York, and that bull was bull market, bear market, all that. That's what it was a sign of. But that's all gone now. Don't think it could happen? It absolutely could happen with the amount of companies that are moving out of town, and it's only going to continue. Bob Ferguson cost us Starbucks. Bob Ferguson cost us companies we don't even know yet. And a lot of the people who teed him up for it, the Democrats, are running for re-election this cycle. Question is, are Washingtonians going to wake up to the hell that's being unleashed? Because now that you've lost all those companies, who do you think they are going to tax when they don't have the revenue they needed for trans surgeries for convicted felons? You. That's who's going to be paying for this. Speaking of socialists who are out of control, Ro Khanna, under fire for defending Graham Platter, decides to take a trip to the Middle East and pulls a Jussie Smollett. And now he's being called out for it. We're going to have this insane story for you when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. It was so great to see so many of you out at the Bremerton Air Show yesterday. I did enjoy, if you haven't seen the video, I put it up on my social media accounts, Ari Hoffman Official on Facebook and Instagram, The Hot Father over on Twitter. There's a video, because these are all antique airplanes that are out there. There is a guy literally carrying a bomb across the tarmac. How do you know it doesn't have any ammo in it or anything? It's because he's carrying it across the tarmac. It's not being lifted up. I actually have a similar shell casing in my house. Why? It was at an auction house, and I thought it looked cool. Stupid things we buy when we're young and stupid and don't realize you have to pay for kids one day. Anywho, so this guy is literally carrying a giant bomb like it's out of World War II across the tarmac and just puts it on the ground. And I'm wondering, do I call security on this dude? No, he looks like he should be there, right? Carrying a bomb across the tarmac, surrounded by lots of people and airplanes? Sure. It's one of the goofiest things I have ever seen. Our friend Matt was standing there with me when I filmed it. I'm like, hang on, dude. Got to get a video of this because this is really, really goofy. Speaking of goofy, by the way, Ro Khanna. Representative Ro Khanna, he's one of the squad members in Congress. Ro Khanna was one of the biggest defenders, supporters, backers of the Nazi tattoo sporting Graham Plattner. He was one of his biggest supporters. Well, he's getting raked over the coals nationally and in his own race because he supported Graham Plattner, and he was one of the last people to say anything. Did he actually even say that he should drop out of the race? I don't remember. He's like Elizabeth Warren. Didn't actually want to be called out for all his support. So he's got a problem, a political problem. He's got an election coming up, and he's the guy who defended the Nazi tattoo sporting alleged rapist. So he's got to change the narrative real quick. What does he do? Let's go to Israel. Let's demonize the Jews. Let me get to Israel. Let me demonize the Jews. So what happens? Ro Khanna goes to Judean Samaria. Some of you may know that area as the West Bank. He hangs out outside this wealthy Palestinian enclave ball, and then he starts lecturing everybody about apartheid and all this other nonsense and claims he was detained by random settlers. None of this makes sense. None of this makes sense at all. First of all, if you are a person in government of a country, you usually coordinate your visits with the State Department of that country. I know this happens all the time. I have sent officials from Washington to Israel before, and I have had officials from Israel come to Seattle and other places before. So I know how these things work. You coordinate it with the local government. Look, I coordinated my trip to D.C. with the local government so I could have access to government officials. You want to see what's going on? You talk to the government. They'll get you there. So first of all, didn't do any of that. Second of all, talking about, the poor Palestinians, he's literally standing in front of a mansion while he's doing it, and that is in a Palestinian territory. So that ain't a Jewish mansion. And he's talking about these settlers with guns. You mean the IDF? What are we talking about here? His entire narrative completely crumbled, completely fell apart. Huckabee was calling him out. Israel was calling him out. And my favorite was when Fox News was calling him out.
Did you really not know that going into a restricted military area guarded by local security forces was going to result in your entourage getting stopped?
It was not an area that was restricted by military. American Congress people had been there before. We went with
prior coordination,
sir. If I could just finish, please, because this should be an outrage to any American.
So wait a second. You tried to go into a place which is right now under security of the IDF and their security forces. You didn't coordinate with the government. Oh, gee, what? Why'd I get stopped? Why'd I get stopped? I don't know. Why'd I get stopped? Yeah, by the way, I love the excuses this guy is coming up with.
With a passport that gives Israel the right to have IDF detain us. It's not just me. I mean, Tucker Carlson and others have said that this is outrageous, that this is happening.
Wait. Hang on. Did Ro Khanna just quote Tucker Carlson? That horseshoe is starting to look more like a circle. Doesn't that seem to be what's going on here? A little bit more like a circle. Ro Khanna, the great Tucker Carlson, yes, known sage of the left. Tucker Carlson pulled the same stunt. He went to Israel, didn't get pre-approval to do the things he wanted to do, got stopped in the airport, got turned around, got sent home. Oh, wait a second. It was more than that. Tucker Carlson didn't even do that. Tucker Carlson went to the airport to have the interview, then took off and went home. He didn't even try to leave the airport. That's what he did, this nonsense. Same kind of stunt. You're pulling up the exact same thing. You're playing the exact same card. Come on, man. We can all see through this. Yes, Ro Smollett, that's what we'll call him. Smollett. We have to come up with some new name for Ro Khanna. That doesn't roll off the tongue as easily. We go to the KVI studio line, take a call from Holly in Port Orchard. Holly, what's up?
Hey, Guy, how are you?
Good. What's going on?
So I was stopping by your booth yesterday. We got there at 1:20.
Yes.
So that I could thank you for the tickets. Because I won the tickets.
Yes.
And everybody said all over Facebook that you would be there until 1:30.
Yes. I had to go to the bathroom.
Oh, bull.
Holly, I was standing. You could ask Matt. You could ask Matt, who was standing right next to me. I literally went to the bathroom. That's why I missed you, Holly. But I'll tell you what, Holly, I'm going to put you on hold for a second, okay? I'm going to put you on hold right now with my producer, okay? We're going to figure out a time where we can meet up so I can make it up to you, okay?
That would be awesome.
Okay, we're going to make this work for you, okay? So hang on one second, Holly. Do me a favor, give your producer your email, and give my producer your email, your phone number. We'll work something out, okay?
Okay.
Hang on one second here, Holly. Hang on one second. See, you come out to see me and I'm not there and I can't give you the tickets. We're going to find a way to make that right, okay? So we'll do that. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. Up next, Judge Dave Larson is going to be joining us because nobody's paying attention to the Washington State Supreme Court cases. So we'll have all the information for you when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Everybody pays attention when the president is up for election, when the White House is open. Some people pay attention when Congress is open in midterm elections. Nobody is paying attention to the fact that here in Washington State, we have 5 spots for the Washington State Supreme Court open right now. And that court is going to decide the income tax. That court is going to decide many other issues, especially the initiatives we've been working so hard to fight. And yet, so many people don't even know that you can elect a Washington State Supreme Court justice. Joining us now, a man who has my complete endorsement, my full support for his campaign, Judge Dave Larson. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I very much appreciated the opportunity to reach out to folks and get them to learn more and maybe be interested in the boring branch of government. So
well, I'll tell you this. Here's the fascinating thing. I got to give a little peek behind the curtain to our audience. There are only like 3 things you're allowed to talk about when you're running for judge. There are so many issues I want to talk about, but let's talk about your experience versus your competitors. I'm looking at your experience. You've got many, many years on the bench. You have a very high rating from other lawyers who have appeared before you. You have all this experience, and I look at the people who are out there right now, and they have none, zero, zilch. This isn't like Congress where anybody can show up and be a member of Congress, and we see how that works out sometimes. You actually have to know the law to be a judge, and I don't see any of these guys with judicial experience.
Well, one of the opponents has judicial experience, but about a third of mine. I'm 18 years on the bench. She has 6. But, you know, the perspective, the Supreme Court sitting in judgment on the errors made by trial judges. And if you haven't been one, it's very difficult to have a perspective. And that may explain some of the decisions that come out of the Supreme Court. Right now, there's only 2 trial judges left on the Supreme Court. 7 have never sat in the chair. And being a judge is like trying to explain to somebody what it's like to be a parent. You don't really understand until you do it. And it's like the NFL doesn't have former players doing instant replay. And the same thing should be for judges that I think the experience is absolutely essential to make good calls.
I say this from personal experience because I come from a family of attorneys. My grandfather, towards the end of his career when he was retired, actually served as a judge when they needed him for mediation purposes. But my wife's grandfather was also a judge. And I mean, doing driving lessons with that guy, according to my wife, was really, really tough because he was a real stickler for that. But that's because he knew every single law, every single rule. And it seems to me that the Washington State Supreme Court right now doesn't rule on anything based on law. They rule based on politics.
Well, some of them actually admit that they're pragmatists, where they're more concerned about the effect of the result. And so they're looking at the result and then reason the law to achieve that result, where it's not supposed to be that way. And the reason we're having difficulties is the law should dictate the result shouldn't dictate the law. And that's what creates a lot of confidence issues. Because if you let the judge kind of put their own opinions in what they think the outcome should be based on what they personally believe, then it throws everything for a loop.
There's also something else, which is I see a lot of these people are friends of the governor or worked with the governor or work with law firms that worked with the governor or are clients of the governor or you name it. I mean, there are too many conflicts of interest here for this to be an unbiased court at all. Are you reading it the same way?
Well, my opponent, the one that the governor appointed, has been a campaign contributor since 2009 to Governor Ferguson. He's already given money to the 2028 gubernatorial campaign. A decent guy, but the problem is that the judiciary is supposed to be the backstop. You also have to have the appearance of being that backstop. That third branch that truly is a check and balance. Like the 2 branches, if things are too cozy or appear to be too cozy among the branches, then there's a perception that maybe the court's just rubber stamping what the legislative and executive branch wants to do versus really truly sitting in that independent posture and providing that true check on power, because power is something I've maintained this, that our system of government is based on people that want to pursue duty and responsibility, not power and control. And that's what the court does, is force, if it's properly functioning, it forces the other 2 branches to pursue duty and responsibility of the Constitution and not to their own whims or their own power.
We're talking with Judge Dave Larson, who's running for the Washington State Supreme Court. And I know that there are judge ethics laws where even posting on social media is a challenge. I know this one judge, not going to say his name, obviously. He's got an alias account so he can post pictures of his grandkids. This is a guy who doesn't even post politics on social media, and I happen to know he's pretty political, but he keeps it separated from his decisions on the bench. And yet we see all these conflicts of interest. They're right there out in the open. And it seems like very few people are even calling it out.
Well, I think when people gain from those conflicts, when people when it's not something that harms them, they're more apt to kind of accept it. And I think the big thing for me is it has to be more about principle than partisanship. And it wouldn't matter whether it's a Republican governor or a Democratic governor, if they're appointing campaign contributors or appointing senior staff people to the Supreme Court or any other court, it needs to be. It's a problem, especially in Washington where there is absolutely no check and balance. So the governor has absolute control over who gets appointed. There's no confirmation process other than in contested elections. In 2024, when I wrote an op-ed in the Seattle Times, 83% of the bench were appointed by Governor Inslee, and that's 172 of the 207 judges, and only less than 30 contested elections. So 140 judges are sitting on the bench. Were sitting on the bench at that time with never receiving any voter approval. And in fact, in counties over 100,000, they don't even show on the ballot if they don't get an opponent. So you can't even do a write-in. So that's how skewed it is in terms of how undemocratic it is in our state. And I've done things. I've actually written legislation to change that, but it doesn't seem to be getting much interest, although it should.
In the last few minutes we have with Judge Dave Larson, I completely agree. The fact that most people aren't even paying attention to the judges, and the fact that most people can't even remember who they voted for the last time a judge was up for election. So going into this next session of the Washington State Supreme Court after the election, let's see, the income tax is definitely going to be there. Keeping boys out of girls' sports is definitely going to be there. We have the parental rights is definitely going to be there. I know I can't ask you how you would rule on these cases, but are there other big ones I'm unaware of that may be heading that direction too?
Not that I'm aware of. Really when voters are trying to discern, because we can't talk about those decisions. We couldn't hear the case. In other words, the remedy is if we start talking about the decisions, we couldn't sit on the case. But these things are a much bigger issue, represent a much bigger issue in terms of government and how it works and whether it's truly reflective of the people. But that's a whole different issue in the political process that the courts don't, but the courts inherit that. And that's what makes this position more political, because people want to install people that will reinforce their political views. And that's antithetical to what we're supposed to do in the judiciary, which is to have people that decide the law and the Constitution the way it's written without regard to political issues. And I've done that in my race. I'm completely bipartisan, completely nonpartisan. And in fact, gotten endorsements from parties, political parties all over the map, including the Cascade Party, which was started by Nirvana bass player Chris Novoselic, and then the Forward Party started by presidential candidate Andrew Yang and former New Jersey Governor Christine Todd Whitman. Point is that to disperse that to show that there's political breadth to what I do rather than narrow political, such like some of the other candidates that focus on one party.
And everybody here should be focused on these races because, like I said, there are 5 positions up on the Washington State Supreme Court, and the issues you guys care about are going to be going before them. Do you really want Inslee, Ferguson's hand-picked people being the ones who decide these issues? Judge Dave Larson, really appreciate you joining us today. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure.
Good day.
We got a whole lot more to discuss as a show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder to check out KVI.com for the latest articles, updates, and information. Plus, you can sign up to become a KVI insider right over there. And that way you never miss out on events, you never miss out on tickets, you never miss out on contests, you never miss out on anything. So make sure to sign up to become a KVI insider. Over the weekend was Turning Point USA's Student Leadership Summit, which is when the kids who are heads of all the chapters head on out for a big conference. And Erica Kirk was talking to them. Don't forget where Erica Kirk was the day before. She was in a courtroom looking at her husband's alleged murderer. I can't believe I have to say alleged after all the evidence that came out, but his alleged assassin. And then she has to go run an organization. Between that, she has 2 kids to raise on her own now. I mean, that's incredible. Absolutely incredible that she has the fortitude to do that. And while she's out there, she said something really, really profound. In fact, she said a lot of profound stuff, especially. We know that last week during the evidentiary hearings at the trial, we know that it basically debunked all the conspiracy theories. So Erica was right, the internet was wrong, and Candace Owens looks like a moron, and anybody who followed her looks dumb for having followed her. Here's what Erica Kirk said.
So you have the internet coming after you. You have them slandering your name. You have them saying all this trash about you. And what do? You wake up that next morning, you put on the armor of God, and you keep going. That's what you do.
Because what other choice do you have? Because what other choice do you have? But also, that's what you do when you're committed to the mission. Now, something else she said, this I really liked from her speech as well.
This past week, I have seen something I'm still trying to unpack and put into words. And someone asked me, do you still want to go to the Chapter Leadership Summit? And I sat there and I thought, I already knew my answer, but I just thought about it. I like to internalize things, sometimes too much. And I thought to myself, you know, if you don't fight for what's right, I would much rather our country look like this room than the inside of that courtroom.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You got a bunch of kids who are taking off from their summer vacation to go to a political conference, to go to a leadership conference where they're learning about how to run school clubs. They're basically doing school programs during their summer break. Why? So they can teach other kids about Judeo-Christian values, so they can teach other kids about loving America and American exceptionalism. This isn't one of these big hangout conferences. This is where they actually do leadership skills, and they teach them these are best practices for running your Turning Point clubs. And they chose to do that during their summer break. I'm not saying it's not fun. Thousands of kids, I'm sure you meet some new people and have a very active social life. But they chose to take part of their summer vacation and go do this. Conversely, you look at what somebody like Tyler Robinson and Lance Twiggs were doing. It says everything you need to know about the kind of kids at Turning Point USA. They are choosing to spend their summer vacation doing things like this. And what kills me still is just the fact that Tyler Robinson was the very kind of kid that Charlie Kirk was trying to help, this kid was brainwashed and went and did something awful like that. God bless Erica Kirk. God bless Turning Point USA. Final hour free-for-all when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free-for-all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the KVI studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, nature is healing. By that, I mean homeless vagrants are coming back to Seattle. And what's the latest with Trump's announcement tonight? We'll have a preview for you. But before we get to any of that, I don't usually entertain conspiracies. I am up for entertaining conspiracies today, and I will tell you why. Because Mitch McConnell posted... Mitch McConnell didn't post any picture. Let's be real about this. Somebody for Mitch McConnell posted that picture of him in the hospital with his wife, and it is the most AI-looking thing I have ever seen in my life. In fact, it leans itself to be parodied. My favorite one that I saw, because we haven't seen Mitch McConnell in a month, favorite one I saw is Mitch McConnell in that hospital bed, but standing next to him is Elvis and Michael Jackson and John Wayne. Now, truth is, what I think really happened is I think the picture don't look so great. I think somebody touched it up using a little bit of AI or something. That's what I think happened. I think the dude is alive, but why post a picture and not a video? Why post a statement? If everybody's questioning your health and questioning that, why don't you put out a video? Now, mind you, everybody would have said the video was AI too. But why not put that out? The dude has frozen while speaking. The dude has collapsed multiple times. What he is saying is that, or what his people are saying, is that he had a really bad fall and had to go to the hospital. Why'd you keep it secret for a month? Because I don't think the dude is functional. Do I think he's dead? No, I don't think he's dead. Do I think he's in a coma? No, I don't think he's in a coma. But a fall for a guy that old who's in that bad shape, that's a really, really, really serious thing. Just come clean about it. But then you're going to have a bunch of people saying, hey, dude, maybe it's time you step down from the Senate. I know you want to finish your term, but, dude, you really want to go out this way? Is this what you want to do? Now, of course, he had to issue something because when Lindsey Graham actually dies, now you got to issue. Where's Mitch McConnell? Yesterday, while at the Bremerton Air Show, people kept coming over. What do you think's really going on with Mitch McConnell? Who do you think killed Lindsey Graham? All right, I think Lindsey Graham died because he's a 71-year-old man whose family has a history of heart conditions, who also just got back off a plane from Ukraine. Now, I don't think he got poisoned in Ukraine. I don't think Russia poisoned him. But you know what I think actually did happen? And this is what they're telling us, the official story. I have no reason to believe anything other than the official story, is that they actually tell older people or people who have blood clot issues to walk around airplanes. And I think maybe that was a contributing factor. If dude's tired, if dude fell asleep for the whole flight, and air pressure's building up, maybe you're going to have an aortic tear. I'm not a doctor, but sometimes the simplest explanation is the most reasonable one. Now, today didn't help matters when the FBI shows up at Lindsey Graham's house in D.C. Why do you think the FBI is there? Who killed him? Who did it? How did he die? Now, I'll tell you why I think the FBI went there. Shall we just go through the committees that Lindsey Graham was on? Senate Budget Committee, Senate Judiciary Committee, Senate Appropriations Committee, Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, Senate Armed Services Committee. Wait a minute. This guy was involved in a lot of foreign stuff and a lot of national security stuff. You don't think he's got classified documents at his house? Apparently everybody in D.C. has classified documents at their house. My guess is the FBI was over there to see if there's any classified material at his house, on his hard drive, on his computers, because he was an active member of the Foreign Relations Committee, which works on U.S. foreign policy, military affairs, and national security. So you think maybe the dude has some classified stuff sitting around his D.C. house? Yes. Now, if you think there's a more complicated explanation of any of this, please let me know. You can give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Robin Lakewood says the Mitch McConnell video of him breakdancing is the best. I haven't seen that one. I have not seen that one. I've seen a lot of other funny ones, but that one sounds like one I actually want to see. But getting back to Lindsey Graham for a second, really, really sad that he passed away. And I'm very sad because, one, we lost a great American who gave his entire life to public service. It's a guy who served 30 years in the U.S. Air Force, 20 years in the Senate. This is a guy who gave his entire life to America, didn't have a wife, didn't have kids, gave his life to his country. But then you find out something else. the dude didn't cash in on being a member of Congress like somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene left Congress, and she was worth like $20 to $30 million. Ilhan Omar was worth $20 to $30 million before her accountant screwed up, and they had to revise those estimates. Lindsey Graham was worth $1.5 million. That's it. Now, you may say $1.5 million, that's a lot of money. That's basically a house in D.C. and a house somewhere else. That's not a lot of money, guys, in today's society, especially when you compare it with what's going on in Congress and how Nancy Pelosi's worth a gajillion dollars. He should have followed Nancy Pelosi's stock trading tips. But actually, it really draws a distinction between him and Ro Khanna, who's got elevators in his house and is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Ro Khanna, who just made up this whole stunt we talked about in the last segment of this trip to Israel, where he literally didn't coordinate with Israel, went to cause trouble, and magically had a New York Times reporter with him? Incredible. What an incredible coincidence. Right when he's trying to defend himself against everybody calling him out for supporting the Nazi tattoo sporting alleged rapist? Yeah. And then there's Lindsey Graham. He gave his entire life to this country. Really, really did. I wish I would have had the opportunity to interview him. I tried a few times. It just didn't work out for whatever reasons, and sometimes that happens, but you always figure there's going to be another opportunity. I thought it'd be a lot of fun to talk to him. I really don't like what I see some people doing online. Actually, Kamala Harris wrote a really nice tribute to him. Amy Klobuchar wrote a really nice tribute to him. Joe Biden wrote a really nice tribute to him. The mainstays of the Democrat Party, it's the lunatics like the Hassan Pikers of the world, like the Atticus Kasparians of the world who are saying all the bad stuff. But the Democrats have been reasonably behaved during this whole time because Lindsey Graham was universally liked. They may have disagreed with him, but everybody seemed to like him. They liked him for his sense of humor. I'll take you back to 2010. You remember during the hearings on Elena Kagan when she was being confirmed as a Supreme Court justice? You remember this moment? This was all Lindsey Graham.
Where are you at on Christmas Day?
Senator Graham, that is an undecided legal issue, which, I suppose I should ask exactly what you mean by that. I'm assuming that the question you mean is whether a person who was apprehended in the United States is...
No, I just asked you where you're at on Christmas.
You know, like all Jews, I was probably at a Chinese restaurant.
Great answer. Great answer.
You know, I could almost see that one coming. I thought,
Me too. So you were celebrating
Senator Schumer explained this to me earlier.
Yeah, he did.
If I might, no other restaurants are open.
Right. You were with your family on Christmas Day at a Chinese restaurant. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's great. That's what Hanukkah and Christmas is all about.
Now, aside from the sense of humor, also the thing about Lindsey Graham was he was very big on American exceptionalism, and he was very big on American military might, peace through strength. People call him a neocon as if that's a bad word. People have twisted neocon into being a bad word because they don't like endless wars, and they think that every single intervention action we do is going to end in an endless war. Look what we did in Venezuela. That was over in a couple of hours. Boom, done. So the political philosophy behind neocon is conservative on domestic policies with an interventionist, pro-American foreign policy. What's wrong with that? You don't believe that if Al-Qaeda attacks us, we should go destroy Al-Qaeda? You don't believe that if Iran is promising to blow us up with nuclear weapons, we should go take out Iran? Now, how we fight those wars, I'm happy to have a discussion about. In fact, I'm happy to have a discussion about whether or not you think we should go. But if you don't deal with it abroad, eventually you're going to deal with it at home. Look, I think some massive mistakes were made with the second Iraq war. I think some massive mistakes were made with the first Iraq war. I think a ton of mistakes were made in Afghanistan. I think some mistakes were made with how we're fighting the Iran war right now, but I don't get to make these decisions. However, would you rather be fighting this on the streets of New York? Would you rather be fighting it on the streets of Seattle, Washington? We've seen what happens with a few terrorist supporters on the streets of Seattle, Washington, what happens around here. Core beliefs of neoconservatives is a strong U.S. military and high defense spending. I haven't met a single Republican that doesn't believe in those things. American global leadership, believing the U.S. should actively shape world affairs rather than retreat from them. I know there's some isolationists, but they're the minority of the party. military intervention when necessary to protect U.S. interests, allies, or promote democracy abroad. I think the last two are what some people have issues with. Should we really spend blood and treasure protecting allies or promoting democracy? It hasn't really worked out in the past. But I know a lot of people who say, yes, protect those U.S. military bases, protect those strategic U.S. interests overseas. Strong support for allies, particularly Israel. Most conservatives would agree with that. Free market economics. Traditional family values. That American power is a force for global stability. That the U.S. should confront authoritarian regimes before they become greater threats. Now, that doesn't mean we have to go to war with them. We have peace deals with Qatar. They're horrible people. We have peace deals with Saudi Arabia. They're horrible people. We sell them weapons. That's a way of dealing with it so they don't become a threat. Democracy promotion abroad can improve long-term security. We're delivering democracy when we drop bombs on you. I don't know about that one. Isolationism or significant retrenchment invites aggression from adversaries. Exactly right. Exactly right. Look at World War I. Look at World War II. Look at many other conflicts, how they actually started. So I will say is that if you have an issue with how the wars are fought, yeah. But these people go, he's a neocon. Almost all of that is in the Republican platform. Almost all of that. Peace through strength. That is literally what being a neocon is. Some people go, well, it means you're making money for the military-industrial complex. Lindsey Graham wasn't. Lindsey Graham was doing it because he actually believed in it. But even if you hate Lindsey Graham for all those reasons, we got a great Supreme Court justice because of Lindsey Graham. We got Brett Kavanaugh because of Lindsey Graham. Let me take you back to 2018. Do you remember what was going on with the Kavanaugh announcement, the Kavanaugh appointment to the Supreme Court? The left was going nuts. They were calling him everything. They were accusing him of rape. You had that gal, Ghislaine Blasey Ford, whatever her name was, who looked like Garth from Wayne's World. You remember that? Making up all those accusations against him? Dude, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Look at a picture of Kevin's laughing. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. She looks like Dana Carvey in Wayne's World. Sorry, dude. That's what she looks like. She's making up all these allegations, got no proof for them whatsoever. People are storming the Capitol. This is before storming the Capitol was deemed a bad thing, I guess. And they were making up all these allegations, and basically it's no different than what they did to Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas called out Joe Biden to his face for the modern-day lynch mob that came after him. This is the way it's going to be. But Lindsey Graham, who was friendly with everybody, who was nice to everybody, called out the Democrats for their behavior. And he did so in such a way that he got Brett Kavanaugh across the finish line.
If you wanted an FBI investigation, you could have come to us. What you want to do is destroy this guy's life, hold this seat open, and hope you win in 2020. You've said that, not me. You've got nothing to apologize for. When you see Sotomayor and Kagan, tell them that Lindsey said hello, because I voted for them. I would never do to them what you've done to this guy. This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics. And if you really wanted to know the truth, you sure as hell wouldn't have done what you've done to this guy. Are you a gang rapist?
No.
I cannot imagine what you and your family have gone through. Boy, y'all want power. God, I hope you never get it. I hope the American people can see through this sham. That you knew about it and you held it. You had no intention of protecting Dr. Ford. None. She's as much of a victim as you are. God, I hate to say it because these have been my friends. But let me tell you, when it comes to this, you're looking for a fair process. You came to the wrong town at the wrong time, my friend. Do you consider this a job interview?
The advice and consent role is like a job
interview. You consider that you've been through a job interview?
I've been through a process of advice and consent under the Constitution.
Would you say you've been through hell?
I've been through hell and then some.
This is not a job interview.
Yeah.
This is hell.
This
is going to destroy the ability of good people to come forward because of this crap. Your high school yearbook. You have interacted with professional women all your life, not one accusation. You're supposed to be Bill Cosby when you're a junior and senior in high school. And all of a sudden you got over it. It's been my understanding that if you drug women and rape them for 2 years in high school, you probably don't stop. Here's my understanding. If you lived a good life, people would recognize it, like the American Bar Association has the gold standard. His integrity is absolutely unquestioned. He is the very circumspect in his personal conduct, harbors no biases or prejudices. He's entirely ethical, is a really decent person. He is warm, friendly, unassuming. He's the nicest person. The ABA. The one thing I can tell you, you should be proud of. Ashley, you should be proud of this, that you raised a daughter who had the good character to pray for Dr. Ford. To my Republican colleagues, if you vote no, you're legitimizing the most despicable thing I have seen in my time in politics. You want this seat? I hope you never get it. I hope you're on the Supreme Court. That's exactly where you should be. And I hope that the American people will see through this charade. And I wish you well, and I intend to vote for you, and I hope everybody who's fair-minded will.
Democrats were so shocked by that, some of them actually gave in. They weren't giving in to the mob anymore because Lindsey Graham was well respected on both sides of the aisle. So who's going to replace Lindsey Graham? Well, South Carolina's governor made a big announcement today. It was kind of heartwarming and kind of sad all at the same time.
Today under the law, it's my duty and honor to name someone to serve in the place of this irresistible man, this irreplaceable man, this extraordinary man for the remainder of his term. Lindsey took care of his little sister in years long departed. It's my honor to ask his little sister, Darlene Graham, to finish his work for him now. And by the way, Darlene, I don't know if I told you, but after we spoke on the phone in the wee hours of Sunday morning, and you agreed to serve through tears, earlier, I had wondered what you would say, and I was humbled by your quickness to see the duty that you had to serve.
Now, for those of you who don't know, Lindsey Graham's parents died when they were very young. Lindsey Graham ended up adopting his sister and raising his sister, and they were very, very close. As I mentioned before, Senator Graham didn't have any family aside from his sister and his nieces. That was his family. So if you're worried about the Senate seat, what's going to happen is she is going to step up and fill in until the election and until the term is over. And then when the new Congress comes in after the election, whoever wins the seat, that's the person who's going to take the role when they get sworn in January 20th. That's what's going to happen. So, a little bit before then. They get sworn in before then. But that's what's going to happen. So you're not going to lose his vote. So instead, now we can focus on who the man was himself. And I actually think this is a guy worth remembering. And sometimes we get so wrapped up in the politics of a situation that we forget that these are people with families. And this is a guy who gave 50 years of his life to the U.S. This is what his sister had to say.
Great idea. And I'm sure that everyone here does as well. Darlene, little sister, come forward, please.
Thank you, Governor, and just bear with me as I try to get through this. But first, I just want to say one thing I've never heard Lindsey described as is irresistible. So, okay, we'll just start with that. But first, I would like to thank everyone who has called and reached out over the past couple of days. I can't tell you how much it's meant to me and our family. I know Lindsey was loved and respected by many, and I greatly appreciate the memories and even the funny stories that have been shared. These shared experiences, along with our faith, have gotten us through these past 2 very difficult days. Next, I want to thank the governor for selecting me to serve the remainder of Lindsey's term. It is such an honor. Lindsey has always been there for me, and now I will be there for him. My brother was the most amazing person, outstanding leader, and just a genuinely good man. He was kind and considerate and loved by his family dearly.
And that's the guy we should be remembering right now, a guy who served our country for 50 years, a guy who did what he thought was best for America, and a guy who was beloved by his family. That's what we should be remembering, and that's what we should be celebrating right now. Up next, my friend, Seattle is quickly returning to nature. By that, I mean homeless, drug-addicted vagrants are moving back to all their usual hotspots. Decline is a choice. We'll give you all the latest details, plus a preview of what President Trump's going to say tonight when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Did you see a big plume of smoke coming from Lake Washington over the weekend? I did. It's kind of funny. We had these new friends in town. My wife has been friends with the wife for a really, really long time, for years and years. They basically grew up together. And her husband, I'd never met her before. I'd never met him before. They were staying at our house for the Jewish Sabbath. So we're having lunch. And as I've described before, lunch on the Sabbath is basically like having a Thanksgiving meal. You come home from synagogue, you go have lunch, and you sit there talking and schmoozing and a little drinking. And that's how you spend your Sabbath afternoon. So I forget who got up. It was either her or my wife went to the kitchen to get something. And they said, oh, my God, look at that. There's a lot of smoke coming from the lake. And, of course, what do we do? Because everybody's a bunch of rubberneckers or looky-loos or whatever the term you want to use is. We all go running outside to my deck. My house, I'm very, very blessed. My house has a 180 view of Lake Washington. You get the mountain in it. It's really, really nice. I got it back when houses were cheap here in Seattle. So we go running outside, and there's a boat on fire in Lake Washington. Now, watching this whole thing transpire from a distance, we can't tell if anybody's on the thing. We can't tell how close other boats are, but we see one police boat and two police boats and three police boats, and then we see them spraying water on what's left of this thing while it's still floating. We didn't know what happened. Little did I know what was actually going on was this boat caught fire. We still don't know how. And this woman and her dog, luckily, are safe. According to the Seattle Fire Department, they were able to rescue the woman and the dog, who were able to jump for it, and we're okay. But watching this was a big fire on the boat. I kind of wonder what happened. I have different theories. It looks like an inboard to me. It looks like an inboard or an IO engine. So I wonder if something sparked in there. I wonder if it's old. It could be anything. Speculating isn't going to do much good. We'll know eventually. But yeah, if you saw that big fire on Lake Washington this weekend, that's what it was. Meanwhile, you remember that dude we told you about on Friday who tried to kidnap a child in a stroller from Pike Place Market? Well, sounds like Seattle's becoming Seattle again. Did you enjoy the World Cup? I told you, enjoy it while you have it, because right afterwards it's going to turn right back into Seattle. So this guy who was arrested on Thursday after trying to swipe a stroller with a child in it was arrested, and he was up on charges on Friday in court. Now, King County prosecutors requested bail be set at $150,000, and the judge lowered it to $100,000, which means you can get out with 10%. Which means this guy could be out because one of these bail funds will actually bail this guy out. Now, we'll do some digging, find out more about this feller. But this guy said he told police he saw the baby crying in a stroller and the woman threw a blanket at the child, according to the statement of probable cause. The suspect said he felt like the child was being abused, and he claimed he never attempted to take the stroller. I have trouble believing his version of events. I really, really do. And I am sure that when we find out, what do you think it's going to be? We did this on Friday. What do you think it's going to be? You think it's going to be homeless? You think it's going to be drug addict? Do you think it's going to be somebody with a prolific offender record, or all of the above? I think we all know what the answer is going to be. We will find this out in short order. As soon as we have that information, we'll bring it to you. Other big news out of our area for the weekend is the fact that the Seahawks likely have a buyer. Now, King 5 did a good write-up on this, and they actually spoke to the guy who's the reason the Seahawks are still here, who saved them in the 1990s. Give a listen.
The man set to take over is 71-year-old Vinod Khosla, one of Silicon Valley's best-known venture capitalists.
I'm actually ex-Microsoft, and I thought a bunch of ex-Microsofties could get together and buy the team. I was very disappointed that nobody in Washington State bought it.
Anybody who's dealt with them that I've talked with at Stanford knows that they are winners.
King County Councilmember Pete Von Reitbauer helped convince former owner Paul Allen to buy the Seahawks in 1997, and he's learning more about the new owners, the Khosla family.
There's one thing you should know about the family. The Khosla family have lived in the same house in California since 1986, and for about 25 days out of the month, the Khosla family comes together as a family. So we're not just getting a owner, we're getting a family of owners who are committed to winning.
I'm excited that there's interest in the purchase, and it looks like there's good alignment there as far as being a family.
For fans of the Super Bowl champs, there's nothing these fans want to change other than staying on top.
Maybe the only thing you would change then is a bigger trophy case for more Super Bowls?
Yes, let's do another. We need another one. Just one more would be great.
So the man who helped Paul Allen into ownership expects a family style this time around as well. The man says Kozla's wife, Neeru Kozla, is also expected to serve as the franchise representative to the NFL. Live in Seattle, Alex McClune, King 5 News.
Now, the truth is we don't know a lot. Everybody, every clickbaity headline, what do we know about the ownership? Well, we know he worked in Silicon Valley, and we know he was we know he made a lot of money there, and we know he can afford a football team, and that's about all we know. That's basically, we know he owned 3% of the 49ers. That's about it.
I was sitting in on our sister station's news editorial meeting today, and there was some talk about how this whole area has PTSD from all of this stuff in the past, right?
Yeah.
Early on, before the Seahawks went to Paul Allen, obviously the shenanigans with the Sonics, and then, of course, the Mariners also almost going away back in 95 or whatever it was. So it's kind of weird, right? And I said, does this guy have any local ties, or this family have any local ties that we know of? And no one really knows right now. So
here's really what the Seahawks have going for them to stay in our area, okay? Forget all the stuff we talk about businesses moving out of here. Let's do some geography for a second, okay? There are no football teams in Oregon. There are no football teams in Idaho. And you keep going and you see all these states without football teams. That is the Seahawks market, is that area here. It would be pretty dumb to take them out of here and move them to, let's say, California. You don't need another football team there. They just brought the Rams back. Vegas has a football team now. So where are you going to move these guys to? That's the real question. If you want to take them out of here, where would you move them to? So I think right now it doesn't make a lot of sense to move them.
I would agree. I think this area is still really, really good market for the Seahawks, obviously. So it's going to be a while, but you can't help but know in the past things that have happened, right? So that's why we're all kind of like, eh. And it always seems like, I don't know why it would seem this way, but like, oh, if it's someone who's local, like Paul Allen or whatever, it didn't matter back when it was the Sonics.
Right, didn't matter at all.
It didn't matter. So I don't know why this idea of that is so important.
Well, everybody's worried because you see Starbucks moving, as we discussed earlier in the show. And, we see that kind of stuff happening, and people are worried they're going to go. Now, what I think the impacts of the taxes and the Democrats' policies will be, you won't be as competitive because some of the better players will say, I want to go to Florida. Now, there's only so many spots in Florida, and there's only so many spots in other states that don't have income taxes and such. So they can't all go there, but people are rightfully concerned. Believe me, I get it. When the Mets were up for sale, when we found out that was going on, we're all like, we're going to buy the team. We're all Mets fans. We're going to chip in $25 a pop. We'll all buy the team together.
Yeah, just shut them down.
Yeah, that's kind of how it feels. By the way, they had an 86% chance of going to the postseason at the beginning of the season. 0.8% right now. 0.8% right now is where the Mets are in our world of going to the postseason. In fact, somebody had a great graphic. They said where the Mets stand going into the All-Star break, it's a giant inflatable Mr. Met who fell down on his face. I go, yep, that's where my Mets are right now. Up next, my friends, President Trump's topic he's going to be addressing to the nation tonight is not Iran. I'll tell you what it is when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I love this text we got here from John in Lakewood. Ari, the New Orleans Jazz became the Utah Jazz. The Hawks could become the Utah Seahawks. And then Katie Wilson could again say, bye. So, you know what's funny about that? I happen to know the lawyer who did that case. His last name is Hoffman. Yeah, he's related to me. So, yeah, we can have that conversation, tell that story another time about how the New Orleans Jazz became the Utah Jazz. But, guys, you know why you normally move a team? You normally move a team when you think you can make more money somewhere else and you're not selling tickets or merchandise where you are. I don't think that's a problem here. I really don't.
If you have an inside scoop on that, why didn't they change the name?
So, the way I heard it, I will double check with my father the next time I talk to him. I understand is that it cost so much to move the team, they didn't have the money to rebrand all the merchandise and everything like that, so they just stuck it with that, is what I understand. I mean, you weren't talking the mega bucks we have now in sports, right? So just keep it as the Jazz, wherever they're from. Because it's really dumb. It should be, I don't know, the Utah Bobsleds or something like that, not, you know, the Utah Jazz. Yeah. Jazz makes sense for New Orleans.
The Salt Lakers.
There you go. The Mormons. I don't know, whatever it is. You come up with something else, you can call it that. But, yeah, I think
the missionaries.
Whatever. I think it was something like that, like it was just too expensive to rebrand everything.
Because as a kid, I only knew them as Salt Lake City, right? So I didn't know where they came from. I didn't know the history behind it. And then later on, I was like, oh, yeah, that never made sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Never made sense.
It doesn't make sense. Like, for example, what was one of the names under consideration for the Kraken? You know, the Metropolitans. Why? Because the first team to ever win the Stanley Cup was the Metropolitans. And that banner is up in the rafters of Climate Pledge Arena, otherwise known as Key Arena. So I was kind of pulling for that because I thought it would have been really funny to have the Seattle Mets. Yeah. I thought that would have been great. But, yeah, teams have history. I mean, teams move. There are, it comes to mind, what other teams don't have names that make sense? I got to go back and rehash this a little bit and rethink about this, other teams. But that's the one that always stands out is the Utah Jazz.
It's weird, too. Like, you had the Brooklyn Dodgers, and then now they're the L.A. Dodgers.
Well, okay, perfect. Do you know what a Dodger is? This is funny. Trolley Dodgers. You're trying to get out. Are there a lot of trolleys in Los Angeles?
There may have been some when they moved there.
There's
back
a few.
In the
We
day.
all saw Roger Rabbit, right? But we know Dr. Doom or whatever, Judge Doom, wanted to get rid of the trolley so he could build a highway as far as the eye could see, right? We all know this. But yeah, why'd they move him out there? Because they saw dollar signs in moving a baseball team to California. Right. Moving the football team? I don't know, guys.
It's like when they took the Sonics out of here and they went to Oklahoma City and then they turned into the Thunder. It was like, I guess I kind of understand that, but the Sonics, that's kind of a, I know it's airplane based, but by the time they moved, most people don't know that. There's not a supersonic.
Right. Well, why are they called the Jets? You know why they're called the Jets? This is funny. You go to yourself, what do Jets have to do with New York? It's the airplanes flying overhead from JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark that fly over the stadium all the time. They call them the Jets. That's literally where that comes from, where you go, what does this have to do with New York? So, yeah, some teams have dumb names. They do. And the Jets are not going anywhere fast. I will say that. That is for sure, no matter what season it is. Anyway, switching gears over here. Oh, the Lakers. Oh, that's a good one. 760, the Lakers, right. How many lakes are there in Los Angeles? Great point, 760. That's a very, very good one. This one, Robin Port Orchard says the Seahawks will move into their new stadium in Oakland in 5 years or less. Okay, more people are getting out of Oakland than out of Seattle. I don't think they're going to Oakland. I really don't. Didn't the Raiders just leave and go to Vegas?
Yeah, and most of the Oakland teams, if I'm not mistaken, don't really play in Oakland.
They've all moved. The A's moved, right? Yeah. The football team moved. So who's left? Who's even left? There's nobody left in Oakland. I don't think we're going to Oakland. That's not going to happen. Anyway, switching gears, what's President Trump going to talk about tonight? Well, we thought it was going to be about Iran, but it turns out the White House has announced that President Donald J. Trump will deliver a national address on newly declassified intelligence reports, revealing plans by foreign nations to interfere in the 2020 presidential election. Trump granted his acting director of national security blanket authority to declassify the reports. Reports indicate the address is scheduled for tonight at 9 p.m. because President Trump is always very considerate of my show schedule. We go to the KVI studio line, take a call from Paul in Federal Way. Paul, what's up, man?
Hi, I just wanted to comment on Lindsey Graham for a moment. I first became aware of Lindsey back during the discussion of impeachment on President Clinton. And when he was a House manager like Henry Hyde, I learned to respect them all quite a lot because of how they emphasized the importance of the rule of law.
Well, that was his favorite line. I mean, that was the famous line. This is what put Lindsey Graham on the map. It's when he asked the question, the now famous question to the Senate, have you committed high crimes and misdemeanor that would cause harm to society? Right? That's what you're talking about when he was the House impeachment manager, right?
Yes, exactly. And that's when I first really learned to respect what he had to say, and I really respected him. And then during the January 6th event, when he seemed to turn coat on Trump, I kind of took a step back and kind of questioned that.
Well, so
But
here's
then
the
he
thing.
came around
He was very clear about why he did that at the time, and a lot of people were. Don't forget, there were a lot of people lining up to defend Trump. And then when that whole riot happened, you couldn't really do that anymore, not because it was Trump's fault, but because it's basically the thing had been delayed and there was all the violence that went on. And actually, the thing I get most mad about the January 6ers who rioted, the ones who caused violence, the ones who attacked police officers, aside from the attacking police officers and all the violence, is one, they undid the narrative of the left was able to excuse everything they had done all summer for the one riot. But two, is that people like Jim Jordan and others who were planning on coming forward with evidence they had of voter fraud were not able to present it because now that had just happened. So, yeah, Paul, great historical context. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. Only good news to wrap up the show. Good news headlines. Put a smile on your face heading into your beautiful evening commute in this beautiful weather we're having outside. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And saw this one here from the Post Millennial. A Grand Canyon rafting guide has become the first American woman to complete a solo row across the Pacific Ocean after spending nearly 33 days alone at sea. Kelsey Pfendler? I think the P is silent. Yes, completed the approximately 2,400-mile journey from California to Hawaii on Friday, rowing into Honolulu Harbor aboard her 21-foot boat to cheers from hundreds of supporters waiting to welcome her. It sounds exhausting. She launched her trip from Monterey, California in May with the goal of becoming the first American woman, the youngest woman, and the fastest woman to complete the crossing. Records from the Ocean Rowing Society International show that her trip of under 44 days broke the previous woman's record of 86 days and the men's record of 52 days, according to the Associated Press. Before taking on the grueling solo trip, she spent 8 years working as a professional river guide on the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon. She started leading trips when she was 18 years old. On social media, she documented her journey, posting videos of her days at sea. Okay, time out. What is in that boat with you? Do you have Starlink with you? How are you posting the videos? Now, my issue is, back when you had people actually making these crossings back in the day, I'm not demeaning this woman's thing. I couldn't do this, right? But you didn't have support boats going with you, and you didn't have cell phones going with you. And if you fell asleep, a shark was going to eat you. We still haven't found that Amelia Earhart lady. We don't know what happened to her. Still missing. All right. How are you posting on social media every day while you're... I have many questions. Anyway, she was showing her exhaustion with blisters. She would explain to her followers how she survived the environments at sea, detailing how she cooks food and endures through mental and physical anguish. She says, "I just love boats in the middle of nowhere." Must have liked Gilligan's Island. If any part of this made at least one person feel a little bit more powerful in their own skin, I couldn't ask for anything else, and I'm happy. Think about trying to find your own big, hard, scary thing. You might not think that you are strong enough to finish it right now. You're definitely strong enough to start it, and you'll find everything else along the way. I'm going to go finish my big, hard, scary journey, she said. That is inspiring. It is inspiring, but I question the social media thing. How do you have reception out in the middle of the ocean like that? I have many questions about this. Also, what kind of device do you have that survives all the water and all the stuff that happens during that time? Is it the device by itself? Is it a really awesome case you bought on Amazon? Is it a third-party accessory, or is it one of those bags you put it in? I got the bags for my kids when we went on water things one time. I have many questions about this. I don't want to diminish her accomplishments, but when you're posting on social media every day about your journey crossing the ocean, I just started asking. I know she beat the men's record. I know she beat the women's record. Very impressive. I just have questions.
I always love when we do a good news segment that ends up not being good news.
It's good news. It's good news. I just have questions.
I know.
I am. As soon as we're done today, I'm going to look up her social media to see some of the details. Like, is there a giant supply boat in the backdrop? I have questions about this.
Nothing surprises me in this day and age anymore of
it
what's
really just
capable. Who can connect to what, wherever they're at.
I know. And yet still, I can't figure out how to get reception when we're down near the World Cup. That's going to wrap it up for us today, my friends. Fear not. We'll be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.